Hey everyone, welcome to the Grind Together podcast. We're the Grinders. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Matt. And on this podcast, we want to create opportunities for growth through real conversation.
Let's go.
And we're back with another episode of the Grind Together podcast.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, for your nightly news. No, I'm just kidding. That was cute. I liked it.
Oh, good. That's funny. Guys, we're so excited for this one. This one's probably going to be one of the funnest ones ever. So
this is probably, I said it a couple episodes ago and we teased you and we just weren't quite ready to come out with all this fun stuff. But today is the day we are ready. We are ready to announce all these fun things that we have been, I can't even talk. I'm so excited that have been happening in our lives. So buckle up, grab the popcorn, maybe some road snacks, a good drink.
Oh gosh.
And let's dive into this. Yeah.
And I hope that a lot of people can relate with this one as well.
I hope so.
Because I feel like a lot of people are in the same situation that we were in.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's a lot of people that don't know how to take the steps to get to where we are.
Yes.
So,
okay. So I want to start this episode off by sharing something that it's funny. We heard it after we did all these things in our lives. But we were reading a book, and in the book, you actually read it before I did. So you shared it with me and you said this is so, it's called The Illusion of Money. If you haven't read it, read it. It's great. But you were like, Lauren, did you hear the chapter? And he says this, and he talks about, how people are always like, wow, they really fell off the deep end, or whoa, they're really swimming in the deep end.
Oh yeah.
And it's supposed to be a bad thing, but he's like, wouldn't you want to be in the deep end? The deep end is where all the cool stuff is. That's where sunken ships are and treasure and rare creatures. The shallow end is boring. It's you there's no adventure there. There's nothing, there's really not a lot in the shallow end. And that made me laugh because I feel like a lot of people, after we decided to do these things, were like, whoa, they're going off the deep end. What in the hell are Matt and Lauren doing? And truly, I've said it episode after episode. I've never been happier than I currently have the last month of making the decisions that we have made. I'm not saying that it hasn't been hard, and that it's been weird and an adjustment and we're still learning and all those things. And July was a hell of a month. Let's just put it that way. So let's dig into it.
I was just going to say, let's get right to it. And so, guys, we quit our jobs, our day jobs, our salary paid.
Yeah.
Jobs. Our 9-to-5 jobs.
Yes.
Lauren's been a real estate agent since we got married. But I've done a couple different things, but I've always had a sales job.
Yep.
Right. And we were making amazing money, really, really good money. And the situation that we were in was outside looking in perfect. Mm-hmm. We had the house, we had the cars.
Our jobs were really flexible with our schedules.
Jobs were really flexible, really lenient schedules. We could go on vacation when we wanted to. We could see our kids when we wanted to.
We kind of set our own schedules to a degree.
Yeah, to a degree.
Yeah.
But then it got down to it, and we both looked at each other and we're just like, is this what we want to be doing? Right?
Yeah.
In a nutshell, we can go into the whole story.
You're making it seem so easy, and it was not.
But, we quit our jobs, and it was, I think for a lot of people, that's a really scary notion. And I think for us too, it at first glance, it was really, really scary.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a little bit less scary, and I'll kind of jump into why right now. And I think that, again, I hope a lot of people can resonate with this, but I was driving to my job one day, and for my job, I actually I went to the office. I pick up things, and then I take them to various places, and I have to do inspections on houses and things like that. And I was just driving up and down the same exact road that I always have driven down. And I was like, is this all life has to offer me? And when I thought about it that way, honestly, the realization of okay, great, I'm 31. I could be doing this for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years of my life. But is this what I want? And I literally, without even going to coaching, without even doing the work that way, I had that question for myself of like, is this what I want from my life? Do I just want to go from point A to point B and then home and then to sleep and then do it all over again?
Yeah.
And in essence, I wasn't doing myself any service because I wasn't growing as a human being, and I understood that. But it was really hard to look myself, to even realize for myself that like, this isn't what I wanted. And I think that so many people out there are in the same exact position where they drive to work or they hop on their computer or whatever it is at home, and they're like, I'm working. And it's like, if you've ever seen School of Rock, it's like for the man, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, you're working for the man, you're working for somebody else doing you're literally facilitating their dream, and building that up. And that gets daunting to a lot of people that really want something of their life, that want to do their own thing. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that there's different personality types, and my personality type just didn't mesh with not being able to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. Right. Yeah. So that was kind of the first little straw of like, hey, I'm really not happy. And then it went to kind of extremes after that, where I couldn't even find myself wanting to do the things that I was really good at in my job. Because my job was all about like whining and dining people. Like I would take people to lunch. I would take people golfing. I didn't have to sit behind a computer if I didn't want to, as long as I was getting deals in the door. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But even then it was like, I couldn't even get myself to do those things. And so I was like, I'm doing myself a disservice, but then I'm also doing my job a disservice and the company that I worked for, because I'm not 100% in the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I had to come to the realization of like, okay, great. What is it that I want to be doing, and what steps do I need to take to get there? But I think that was like the first little piece for me. So,
yeah. And I have my own journey.
Yeah.
Because I was never planning on stepping away from my office type job, because I still am selling real estate, because I have full control over that, and I can do that. And I want to still do that. But outside looking in, like on a spouse's side, like I remember when you came home and you were like, I'm really unhappy and I want to do, like, I think I might want to do something different. And I was like, to hell with that idea. Like, who do you think you are? Like, you're so ungrateful. No, truthfully. And like, it makes me sound like the Wicked Witch. And I kind of was. And like, for a really long time.
No, but don't do that to yourself, because any wife, I think, would think that same thing.
And that's kind of why I bring it up, is because like the initial thought was like, no. Like, I would always say to you, like, there are very few things I want to sacrifice, because I'm really happy with the life that we're currently living. And I think the potential for growth we can do, like, my personality is very much like we can do it all. So we can have the jobs that like are kind of structured, but not really, because they're still kind of flexible. Like, you were potentially like looking at owning that company at some point in time, which I think is a huge piece to that. So in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is going to be amazing. Like, you'll own this company. It's a great company. It like, do you know what I mean? Like, the potential is amazing. So it's like, why would we not continue down that road? Because there's flexibility and there's like great money in it, and it's good. And like, it's an adult job, and like, you're being so ungrateful. And that was that was like spouse's side. Like, I was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you going to do if not? And I was so nervous for that.
Right. Can we pause there?
Yeah.
Because I knew that from your side as well. And I felt that for so long.
Yeah.
Like, for probably a year, maybe two.
Yeah.
Where it was like, hey, I'm really not happy in this job, in this position. I don't want to be doing this anymore. I feel called to so much more. But I know the responsibility that I have to provide for the family, to bring home the money, to whatever it is, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think like
and it did help. Lauren makes more money than I do, right?
Yeah.
She always has made more money than I do. And I think that that's a big factor in the whole decision thing, is just like, okay, cool. And her stance on everything was, hey, if we want to make more money, we can. Like, we both had commission jobs. We could both get there, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was totally up to us. And I think that I love that about you. Right. So that helped a lot. But to your point of, like, I had so much potential in the company that I was in.
Yeah.
right?
And so it seemed so dumb to
And it
walk
seems,
away from that.
and it seems super, super dumb to anybody outside looking in.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I had a hard time wrapping my head around that for a really long time, because I was like, and I knew I was holding you back. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't ever want to say it, but like, I knew I was holding you back because I had so much fear behind, truthfully, like, if you know our story at all, like, when we first got married, like, I worked and you went to school. So like, I have always been, for the most part,
You've always made more money. Yeah.
I've made more money, which like isn't a bad thing, but it was like, finally in our relationship, I felt like I had some help and some support in this sense of like,
Right.
oh, I don't have to bust my ass to get a listing or a buyer this month.
Right.
Like, I can kind of breathe because like between our two jobs, like our overall expenses are kind of paid for. And now my commissions are kind of like saving money or play money, or they're cushioned here. And like,
Yeah.
it was kind of a relief, to be honest. And I'm saying this, like, we have a bunch of money in our bank account, and I will share at one point in time what our savings account was at when we decided to quit, because I think it's so important for people to realize that.
Yeah.
But for me, it really was like, shit, he's going to quit, or he keeps talking about being unhappy, and I don't understand this. And like, I'm pregnant and I'm going to have a baby and I'm going to have to bust my ass. And all I've said this entire pregnancy is how I want to like kind of step back from some of the things that I am doing. Like, I wanted to be like, you take the lead now and you be the breadwinner, and like, I'll still do real estate and like, I'll do my stuff like how I want it. But like,
Yeah.
fly, Matt, fly. And I didn't realize that, like, I feel like I kind of gave you that permission, and I didn't realize you were going to do what you did with it. And I'm
Okay.
kind of grateful that you did.
Oh.
That's where I was going with that.
There's
Like,
the wrinkle. Okay.
do you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like I kind of pushed you in that direction of like, figure your potential out. Like, you can do this.
Yeah.
And maybe I didn't. Like, I think I was trying to
I mean,
do
you
it.
would say over and over again, like, I feel like I'm holding you back. And
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, not that you're holding me back, because at the time I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so it's not like I was just going to up and leave my job and figure, and you know what I mean? And so,
Totally.
but I want to talk about a little bit about like the potential that we both saw and everybody else would see in the position that I was in.
Yeah.
Right. Because genuinely I could have gone down the road, and I envisioned going down the road 5-10 years from now, being at that company and potentially owning it.
Yeah.
Like, and that was real life for me. Like, that was the reason that I was at the company that I was at. Right.
Yeah.
Because I had a chance to buy in. I had it, like, there was so much upside and potential in that. But it's so funny because when anybody outside looking in, that's not me, right, is going to be like, you're the dumbest person for not doing that. But if you've ever felt the way that I feel, or felt in that position, or in the position that you're at, the job that you're at, you'll understand.
Yeah.
Because it's like, no matter what story you tell me of what could happen with the potential of this job, however much money it is, whatever that outcome looks like, it could not keep me from doing what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And it was causing so much like contention inside of myself. Right. And I know that there's so many people out there that can relate to that, because there's so many people that have something that they want. Right. And they can't do it, air quotes, because of the money aspect of it, or whatever it is. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of hide themselves and repress themselves, and they just stay in the job that they have because that's what's comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't like getting uncomfortable, and that's just the reality of it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so no one would have known how I was feeling, what I was thinking, or what I was actually wanting. Right. And everybody could just see from the outside looking in, like, hey dude, you would be so dumb not to take this opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
Truthfully.
And so, and even my wife felt that too. But it's like, I wish I could explain a little bit better that none of that mattered to me. And the only thing that mattered to me, I guess this is the way to explain it. Like, genuinely, the money didn't matter. The accolades didn't matter. The title of owner, whatever it is, didn't matter to me if I wasn't happy actually doing it.
Yeah.
And there's a term of like living a life undivided. I don't think that you can live a life undivided and be your true self and be truly, truly happy if you're definitely not doing what makes you happy. And I think that that's where like our society in a whole has things a little bit off kilter.
Totally.
Right?
And I think that's like where like mine comes into play, because I was very much under the impression of like, no. I can do it all.
Yeah.
I can figure out how to be happy in any situation. Like I can make it my own. Right. And I think like the thing you and I keep coming back to is like the reason that we stepped away from what we stepped away from was because we couldn't create it how we wanted it. Like,
yeah.
As much as we wanted to be a part of it, it was just like, it wasn't ours. And like, it
That's
going,
perfect. Yeah.
and it wasn't going to be ours for a while. And we didn't know when that was going to happen. And, and it felt like we were building and creating and kind of almost limited in that sense. Like I would say you and I are a little bit more like of the creator type that way.
Yeah.
And we felt a little bit like restrained to a certain degree. But like the day that I quit was so funny to me because I went in that morning like, I can do this. Like, this is going to be amazing. And my morning went awesome. And I was like, I can totally do this. Like, I can 1,000,000% make this happen. And this was after, like, I quit after you, which was funny because I was like, oh, I can't quit now. Like, and I like, we're kind of all over the place with like how it all panned out. And I don't know if maybe we should like backtrack a little bit, but for me, it was like, I can do it. Like I can do it all. I'm not super like crazy over the moon happy about where I'm at, but like I can hold out for a while, and I can kind of like, I had control. So like what I was doing was like technically kind of coaching like real estate agents, like new agents that were coming into the business, training. Yeah. And like setting up education courses for them and kind of guiding them through how to get business and all that kind of stuff. Just like to, I feel like most of the time people are like, what the hell do you do? And I created all of that. I was my idea to start it years ago. I brought it to the company and was like, hey, this I want to do this. I think this is needed. I did it like that for a while. Then I came to them again, like earlier in the year. And I was like, hey, I think we need to implement more of like an actual training program where like they can meet one-on-one with me, but then I'm also training and like teaching and all these things. And I genuinely like, it's funny because it was mine. Like I created it. I established it. It was like, it was like a passion of mine for a really long time. And so when I was like, I was unhappy, it's like funny because it's like, you literally are the one that asked for it. So why are you unhappy in it? And, I remember going in that day and I was like, I can make this work. Like I can totally make this work. I'll figure my schedule out. It's great. Like I was training like probably how many times a week? 4 times a week.
No, you probably had like 6 calls a week.
Yeah.
And
on top of selling, on top of doing grind together stuff, on top of like, it was just a lot. And I was feeling that. But I walked in and my coaching, like my training and coaching calls that day were like awesome. Like they were money. And I was like, I'm loving this. This is great. And then I had to talk to somebody. And it was like a light switched and I was like, I can't. It was funny because you were waiting for me outside and I had a full meltdown. Like I held it together throughout my conversation with that person. And I remember just sitting there and just thinking like, they don't see my value. Like they don't like, no one is seeing my value. I really felt like that. Like, I feel like I've done all this stuff and nobody's, which is like, oh, woe was me, whatever. But like, I genuinely felt that it was like I don't know. I feel like people may relate to that where they're in a position where they feel like they're like excelling and doing everything possible that they could do and doing the best job that they can do. And it's just never good enough for somebody. And that's how I felt. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm done. Like I'll go work at McDonald's. Like I can't, they actually pay pretty well, but like, I can't do this anymore. Like I physically can't. And so I like had a full meltdown in the bathroom because I held my emotions in during the conversation because I wanted to appear strong and masculine. I don't know, like stand my ground. And I got in the car with you and I lost it. And I like couldn't stop crying. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I'm so sorry. And in my head, I was like, holy shit, we're walking away from
a pretty big number a month.
Pretty good number a month that covers, it's safe. It was so safe.
Yeah.
And I don't know how in the hell we're going to like survive. That's honestly how I felt. And I'm like getting emotional talking about it because it's like, it was so scary. And I remember I looked at you and I was like, I don't even care what it takes. I can't do this anymore. I can't feel like this anymore. And it was like, it's funny because like we keep saying like, we don't expect people to understand, and we never, ever, ever will, because I don't think you can understand until you're in that position. And people have told us how crazy we are. And I've said, like, in other episodes, like, we've had conversations and people treat us like we're victims of, like, oh my gosh, are you going to be okay? And I've had meltdown after meltdown of, like, we have 3, almost 4 kids, and, like, what did we just do? And like, truthfully, like I said, I would share this, like, when we both quit, I remember for a while we were like, we'll quit when we have like $100,000 in our savings account, which, like, we've never been good at saving our money, literally ever. So the thought of that is, like, astronomically impossible in my mind. I remember, like, maybe it was like a week after we quit, and I was, like, sobbing in my room, and you were like, it's okay. Like, we're going to figure this out. And, I was like, who quits their jobs and has $72 in their savings account? And you and I were just laughing. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's not like we're living off $72, but that was what was in our savings account.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important for people to know. Like, it's not like we have this, like,
because everybody tells you it's like, yeah, you have to have 6 months saved up to be able to live, right? Or to be able to do your thing, or you've got to set everything up. Like, guys, I've heard this a million times.
Yeah.
And it's kept me from quitting my job so many times, where it's like, oh, you have to set everything up so you're perfect. So when you quit your job, you know what you're going to do. You have money rolling in and all this stuff. Like, guys, that did not happen for us.
No.
That is not what happened. We literally we had to listen to ourselves.
Yep.
And to tell, like, it was like, hey, I trust myself enough. And that's been a huge thing for us. Another story point that we can do is trusting yourself. But I trust myself enough that if I'm going to take the leap, that this is going to work out.
Yeah.
Right. And there's only one person that you can bank on, because I found myself going to people for advice.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Going to like air quotes, rich people for advice, or people that have done things in their life and have been successful, but the reality is I don't know their finances. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know where they're going. I don't know what they have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I kept outsourcing all of these opinions, but I would never ask myself. And that's when it got super, super real, is when I started to ask myself, like, hey, I don't really trust myself. I'm outsourcing all of this crap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I love that you said that, because it's just like, like Lauren said, we were never good at finances ever. Mm-mm. Right. And so, like, we literally quit our jobs, and we didn't even know, like, what we needed to make monthly to be able to survive. Yeah. Right. And so, like, the day after we quit our jobs, we're like, well, what are our expenses? We got to figure that out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think we, like, did, like, little bits of that ahead of time, but there was never that, right, like, pressure to do it. And I know we'll probably get asked this question. So it's like, how it looked like for us was nothing special. We literally pulled our bank account out and wrote down our monthly expenses, like the things that we have zero control over, like our mortgage, our cars, our health insurance, our
the stuff, like, that you have to pay for,
the things you have to pay for to, like,
pay for it.
Like, we have to pay these. If we don't, we foreclose, or we get our car repoed. So
that was pretty much like our bottom line. It was like, this is what we have to be making to be able to survive right now, right? If we don't want to change.
And those were like our if you're, like, making a spreadsheet or whatever, this would have been helpful for me, so I'm sharing it. But, like,
oh, cool.
Those were, like, our things I could not change. I have zero control over them. I can shop them. I can try to change them. They may adjust here or there, but, like, they're pretty set in stone. They're not going anywhere. So, like, what is that overall number, and figuring that out? And then our second category was, like, okay, subscriptions or monthly costs that we have that we're paying for that maybe we don't have control over. Like, we still need to pay for them, but maybe what could we cut out? So, like, for us, it was like nanny. I'm going to sound like such a diva right now with the things I'm about to list up. A nanny, a house cleaner,
Netflix,
like, Disney Plus, ESPN, like, any of my kids' activities, any of my subscriptions, gym memberships. I was, like, paying for, like, like, my eyelashes, nails, like, whatever it was that I could think of that is coming out monthly out of my bank account went in that category. Yeah. And from there, we had to literally say, okay, cool. What can we live without?
Right.
Like, what can we live without? Like, and we got rid of so many subscriptions. We got rid of memberships. We were like, okay, cool. Can we do this ourselves? Yes. Like, okay, cool. The house cleaners for me are a big thing. I was like, I don't know if I can give that up, being as pregnant as I am. So I was like, okay, maybe we go down from one, like, twice a month to once a month, or, do you know, like, kind of compromising, just kind of seeing how that would look. And And then we had like our yearly expenses. Like I have yearly things I have to pay for. So do you. They come out at
Right.
different times. So figuring out what that overall number was. And then I was always like, what's our monthly budget on like outside stuff? Like, what does that look like? Like, what is our credit card statement? Like,
Yeah.
how much are we spending on groceries? All that kind of stuff. And those things were harder to figure out. But I kind of once it, and I always thought I needed that. But once we figured out like our bottom line number of like, okay, well, these are things that like come out automatically and like we have to pay these.
Yeah.
It made the other stuff easier for me to track spending a little bit easier because I was like, okay, cool. If I have X amount, if my bottom line's X, and I know I only have this much in my bank account, how like I don't really have a ton to play with here. So
Yeah.
from there, though, it really was for us of like, okay, cool. What are we willing to get rid of?
Right.
What can we live without? And that was really cool for us to detach from a lot of things.
Because you said at the beginning, you were like, when I told you like, hey, I think I want to quit my job. I don't love the life and it was super selfish of me, but I was just like, is this it? Right.
Yeah.
And you told me, you're just like, that sounds so ungrateful.
Yeah. Like I was like, I busted my ass to have this
right.
life. Like,
and
no.
it's like, but, and I can see that now where it was like, what we have is awesome. But I think the vision for my life was just, it's been so much different. It's like, I love the life that we've built, but I think that there's a lot more.
Totally.
Right? And it's interesting because we're talking about going from making some good money to not making money hardly at all. Right.
Uh-huh.
And so it's like, well, how does that make sense if you're going to go down to zero? Right. And the only way that I can kind of describe it is that, we've had this conversation, we even had this conversation right after we both quit. And it was like, okay, great. Well, if we have to go down, if we have to sell literally everything, cars, house, everything, is this still worth it for us?
And
right?
neither one of us are like, without even batting an eye, we're like, yes.
Yes. And like, that was the coolest realization, to be on the same page with my spouse of like, hey, this is the journey we want to go on. This is what we want to do. And we're willing to literally lose everything in order to get it.
Yeah. And I think like, I know it was so much easier for you than me. I feel like.
No, it wasn't.
Maybe it was just a longer journey.
Yeah.
I don't know. And mine was just like radical, like all of a sudden, like, and I do want to share that on this. Like, I do want to kind of share like my little come to Jesus moment. I keep calling it that.
No,
I
was going to go back to that.
But yeah, I mean, we keep going.
But
Sorry.
I was just like, that thought is super scary.
Yeah.
And I know that you were in that position where,
well, I think too,
the
because
thought
it's
of
like,
giving up the life that you've built is really, really scary because, and I would always hear it in like in Instagram posts and from my like friends or mentors or anything like that. And it's like, if you're not willing to drive the cheaper car just because you're worried about what people are going to think of you, then there's a problem there.
Yeah.
And it's really true. And it's that we're so wrapped up in what the world thinks of us rather than what we think of ourselves.
Totally.
And that's a hard realization for people to come to. And it was a really hard one to come to for me.
Yeah.
Because I liked the truck. I liked the look. I liked people thinking that I was really, really well off. Right. I loved it.
Yeah. No. And for me, it was like, okay, cool. I now have to like button down what is important to me.
Lauren loved to shop. Like she would buy the stuff. Like
I love to shop. But like I shared in last week's episode, I've realized how unhealthy that habit was, which I used to get really angry at you about it. And I'm now realizing it's obviously because it was an issue. Mm-hmm. But even like buying stuff for the kids and I mean like, and everybody's like, wow, your guys' timing on this is like just real shitty because I'm literally having a baby in a month and a half. Like we are bringing another child into this world, which is great. And it's so exciting, but things come up and like, for us, it was like, okay, cool. What are we going to do? What do we need to go down to? What does this look like? Like, cool. Like, are we okay not eating out? Like, we're not door dashing. There's no more. It's funny because I looked at it as like, oh my gosh, we're downgrading and like we're sacrificing. And it hasn't really felt like that.
At all.
It's been simple, I would say. Like the best word to put is simple and calm-ish at times. Because it hasn't been sunshine and rainbows. Like I'm not saying we quit our jobs and then like the rainbows appeared and
no, there's a lot
God
more.
was like, oh yes, children, you did the work. Good job. Here you go.
No,
you're blessed. Like we had fucking car problems up the wazoo after like you and I, like, it got to the point almost where it was like comical. Like, I was just like, what else is going to happen? Like, and we just kind of had to laugh about it and just be like, we'll figure it out. Like, it's okay. Cause again, going back to that, like, would we change anything? No. Like, I catch myself so often, even on the days that are really hard, being like, I wouldn't change anything. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't change taking the course. One of the biggest things for me with making this huge decision were like the relationships in my life of like, am I going to lose important relationships? Like, that was my biggest concern. Like, when you quit and I didn't know you were quitting, I think that's a really good point. We should probably point out.
I didn't ask for permission or anything. I just went and did it.
No. Okay. Like, we're backtracking. I'm going to tell my story. Is that okay?
No, absolutely.
Because I want to lead into you not telling me.
Yeah. So I kind of want, let's backtrack. Let's start from the beginning almost. So go for it.
Okay. So like 3 years ago, that long ago, we've talked a lot about energy reading on this podcast. Yeah. And it was probably the second time I ever got my energy read. And I got my energy. This is like a very personal story too. So I'm like, I guess we'll share it on the podcast. I feel inclined to share it. I don't know, but it's very personal. And if you're close to me, you've heard it. So I'm sorry you're hearing it again. So like 3 years ago, it was probably the second or third energy reading I'd ever gotten. And they were in person, so I was recording it on my phone. So I have an audio recording of it. Yeah. And in this energy reading, like, my life was great 3 years ago. Like, I was like killing it at real estate. I think Reese was a baby, or I was
most money we'd ever made.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, life was great. I had no complaints. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. Still feeling a little bit like, I don't know who I am, but like, that's normal. I'm 28, whatever. Life is great. Yeah. And I get this energy reading done, and she talks about, I don't know how else to put it other than just to share it. So here we go. She's like, she sees things when she does energy reading. So she's like, I see this brick building, and I had an ancestor from like my dad's side come forward, and it was like an uncle or somebody, and he was like trying to help me figure out what this was. And it was like this brick building, and it was old, and I'm going to get emotional talking about it because it's like very, very personal. So, and it kind of looked like a library, but not really a library. And it was just this building. And in this building, it was like, I was just by myself, and I had this light, and I had this candle, and I was by myself, and kind of throughout going with it, it was like, she was just asking questions and things like that. But it was like, whatever this is like, you're going to help people, and you're going to be able to share your message, and you're going to be able to talk about things. Sorry. And she was like, I'm seeing, like, as you share and as you do these things and as you talk about whatever, she didn't say talk, but like, as you're doing what you want to be doing, you're helping other people, and you're taking this light and you're passing it on, like you're lighting other candles. And eventually, like I can just see forever and ever that these candles are lit. And in the moment I was like, what the crap? Like, what does that even mean? And I hung on to that for years, and I would ask in energy readings, and I wasn't getting anything. And I was like, is this something I create, or is it something that's already created? Or, and it was always just like, hey, it will, like, you create it. And I was like, does it have to do with my current job? And it's like, no, it's separate from that. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm just supposed to be a real estate agent. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And like, maybe it is the like training at Berkshire. Like, I don't know. And it was just like, whatever it is, it'll just happen. Like, it's just going to happen. And it's very organic, and it just flows. And I'm like, what the crap? And I remember, like, I came home and I told you, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but it drives me crazy. And I've held on to it. And we've explored options of, like, I feel like people should know, so like, we've explored options of like event spaces, and like, maybe we're going to host like a ton of events, and we're going to bring people together that way. And like, all of these things, like, we explored so many avenues, and nothing felt right. And it wasn't until just recently that we kind of were like, we're going to do the coaching thing with Grind Together. Like, there's a reason we started this podcast. Yeah. There's a reason that we felt so drawn to do it.
We'll go back still. Because you asked your energy reader again, and you're like, what is this? Like, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah. And she was just,
and you're like, we started a podcast. Is it that? And she's like, well,
she's like, yeah, she's like, I mean, I don't remember. She's like, kind of, but not, it's not really the podcast. It like kind of has something to do with it, but it's not really that. Because energy work is like not necessarily receiving answers. It's just like kind of guidance and direction a little bit.
Well, the thing is you create your own energy.
Yeah. So like my energy already knew what was going on. And so, and it's funny to look back because like we've probably got our energy read more in the last year than like ever before.
Yeah.
And it was almost like I needed to do everything, and everything needed to happen in our relationship and in our personal lives and everything to even get to where we're at right now, to like make this leap.
Sure.
Because I look back and I'm like, we started the podcast before I even knew anything going on in our relationship. Like, do you know what I mean? And like, I was drawn to do some of the things that I wanted to do even before I saw even what this could even be, or even the potential of this. Do you know what I mean? And so by the time I like kind of had this like realization of like, okay, cool, what does this look like? We were like, okay, we're gonna dabble in the coaching game, but we hadn't decided to quit our jobs yet. We were like, we're gonna do both. We're gonna coach. We're gonna.
You keep fast forwarding.
No,
Stop fast
I know.
forwarding.
I have to fast forward because
Sorry.
it's not gonna make sense.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know the story. And so like, anyways, we were like, we're gonna kind of do this, but we were like a half in, half out because we still need to have our jobs, and we were trying to figure out how to make it all work. And we had a session with our coach that we go to.
Yeah.
And we had some cool like realizations there, and it was awesome. And we were driving home, and I was just kind of like, you and I were talking, and you were just like, Lauren, I need you to promise me tonight that like you'll just write everything down, like that you won't forget. And like I've always wanted to be good at journaling, and I'm not. And I was like, okay, fine, I will. Like I'll write it down. I'll remember, Matt. I have a really good memory. And you're like, no, please just take time tonight and write it down. I was like, okay, fine, I will. So that night I sit down and I'm like, I'm going to journal. I actually avoided it for a long time. Like I thought of like 9 million other things I could do. And I was like, cool, whatever. So I came in our little office where we like film this, and I sat down to start writing, and I was like, wait, like I started and I was like, wait, we had just booked an event, like our event that's on Thursday. We had just booked that. And I was like, what does that building look like? Hold on. Like, what does that building look like? And I like pulled up Instagram, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's a brick building. Like, wait, what? And then I like stopped for a minute, and I was like, what did that energy reading say? Cause I hadn't listened to it in forever. So I went back and listened to the energy reading, and I was sitting in your chair right there, and I was like sobbing, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like the heavens have opened. And I mean, like, I literally received like what I would call personal revelation in that moment of like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Like, and I don't know how else to put it other than that. And like, it's such a cool feeling. And I feel like I personally needed that because I don't think I could have made the decisions without it. And I think that's sometimes what people are like, answers to prayers or whatever kind of spiritual person you believe in. For me, it really was like my higher self, and like I believe God like coming to me and being like, finally, like the only word I can put to it is enlightenment, is like, you figured it out, like good job, like big hugs. Do you know what I mean? And I texted you because you were in our room, and I was like, get out here, oh my gosh, I need to talk to you, OMG. And you like came out, and we like sat here for probably like 2 hours in the most like sacred, coolest experience like I have yet to ever experience in my entire life, of like just pure like this is what we're supposed to be doing. And I don't know how else to put it other than that. And I know not everybody's gonna get that like lightning bolt moment, but that moment made it so hard for me to deny like anything else. Like I couldn't deny that this is what we were supposed to be doing. And like it, like I said, like it didn't matter what it was going to take. Like I was going to figure out how to make it happen, because how could I not? Like I was put on this earth to do this, and that's how I feel like. And so that for me was awesome. And we went to bed, and it was great. And we woke up the next morning, and I said to you, if I quit my job, don't be mad at me, because we hadn't quit yet. Yeah. And you looked at me with like the most serious eyes of like, you don't get to do that before me. Like you don't get to steal that thunder. And you dropped me up in my office. I actually couldn't go into my office that day. Yeah. I was like so emotional. Like I was like crying. You had to walk me in because I didn't want to be there. And I just felt like I was like betraying myself. I didn't know what to do. I was really emotional. And you walked me in, and I did an interview for somebody that day, and it was horrible, and I felt really bad about how bad I did the interview. And I texted you, and you weren't texting me back. And I was like, that little MFer's quitting right now. I knew it. I just knew it. I was like, he's quitting his job. And then he was like, did you quit? Are you quitting? Hello? Why are you not answering me? And we were supposed to meet up for lunch, and you weren't responding. And I was like, he's fully quitting right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're doing it.
Yeah.
I guess we're doing it.
Well, it was interesting. My perspective on that night and like our story and everything is, to backtrack a little bit more, is that like we didn't even know, to your point, we didn't even know the reason why we started our podcast, right?
Yeah.
And like looking back, it was kind of all like divine intervention, right? Because the very first episode that we put out there was about suicide.
Yeah.
And that's what we were going through at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized that as we share the things that make us, that we're going through, whether or not it makes us uncomfortable or not, that it helps other people.
No,
right?
100%.
And the responses that we got, even from the very first episode that we did of this podcast, were so like, literally it was just like, thank you so much for sharing your story. Like, sorry if I get emotional too, but even that first episode of the podcast, we got a message from a person. It was probably 3 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
And he was just like, guys, I'm sitting up at night. I literally contemplating killing myself. And somehow I found your podcast.
Yeah.
We didn't even advertise it or anything. We just put it out there for people to listen to. Right. And he was like, it saved me. And that was huge for me. And I'd never felt anything like that after I read that text.
Yeah.
Because all we did was talk. All we did was share what was going on with us.
Yeah.
Right. And so fast forward to that night where we had our like come to Jesus. You texted me and said, hey, come out here. And I sat next to you and just listened, because I had already been there. I had known that this is what I want to be doing. I meditate a lot. And if you know anything about meditation, is that you can receive answers for yourself because you have all the answers inside of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's another road we could go down too. But I know my purpose, and people say like, oh, find your purpose in life. But guys, that's really hard. It's not easy.
Oh yeah.
It's not easy to find your purpose because like, I mean, your purpose might be to be a salesman. That wasn't mine. Right. I found that my purpose in life is genuinely to share my story.
Yeah.
Right. And as we share our stories, I know that we can help other people to get either to the stage that we're at or wherever they need to be in their lives. Right. But my number one goal is to keep people around. I don't want people dying. I don't want people killing themselves. Right. Yeah. I don't want people to go be in a relationship that they don't want to be in and end up choosing to take their lives instead of fixing the actual problems. Right. So that's where mine started. I mean, it's grown a little bit since then, but I'd already known that was like my purpose. I know that that's my role. And as I share, then I can help.
Yeah.
And I was kind of just waiting for you to see it as well. Right.
It took me a long time.
Yeah. And so that night when you had that realization, we just sat here, like you said, for a couple hours and we just cried. Like,
yeah. A lot.
Just cried, just raw emotion of like, wow, I've never felt that way before. And we're super religious. Like,
yeah,
I've never felt that way before. I've never actually felt called to something that way. And I'm so glad that I had felt it, but that also more glad that also you got there. Mm-hmm. Right. Because from there on, it was just like, okay, great, balls to the wall. What are we going to do with this? And it was so funny because literally the next morning I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I quit. I'm doing this.
You quit that Monday. I quit the next Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been great ever since.
and to your point of it hasn't been perfect.
No,
right?
It's been far from that.
But the picture that I want to paint is like, if you've ever seen like radio waves, right? Or like radio frequencies, they go like up and they go, or like a heartbeat, right?
Oh yeah.
It goes up and it goes down, and there's mountains and there's valleys, right?
Yeah.
And then like on a heartbeat, there's like flat line, right?
Yeah.
Where there's a line straight through the heartbeat. Sorry, there's a line straight through the heartbeat. And when you're just on that line, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you flatline, that's when you're dead. And I genuinely feel that there's so many people that just live on the flat line, right? There's a word that we use. It's called apathy, and they're living numb. They're not living. And so when you're experiencing the valleys and the lows, when you're experiencing the mountains and the highs, like that's when you're actually doing something.
Yeah.
When you go down into like the hardest place you've ever been, the only place that you can go is up. And you can build the strongest foundation at the very, very bottom to be able to support yourself on the way up.
Yeah.
And that's where we had to go. Like even in our relationship where we were like, yeah, we got to the point of divorce. We got to the point of like not wanting to be together. We got to our low.
Yeah.
And we were just like, okay, cool. How do we work out of this? And that's when we found this route, which is so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, take that analogy and like genuinely, are you going through lows and highs or are you flatlining? Right? Because in my life, I was on the straight flat line. And I'm like, I didn't feel like I was living.
And I think sometimes like that flat line is okay. Like it feels comfortable. It's easy.
But you can also mask it with like, oh, I'm going to go buy the new thing.
Sure.
Right? Or just to feel something. Or I'm going to go... Yeah. Or like, that's when people are like, I just need to feel something. I need to go experience something else. Like, let me go do, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. And I think like, I was gonna say like, even sometimes the flat line's not easy. I know there's a lot of people financially right now who like financially, I feel like most people are struggling. And
yeah, but we're not talking about finances, babe.
I know that, but I'm talking about life. Cause I think that's probably the number one reason people don't take action on things is the fear of living or finances or like providing or whatever that is. Like, I feel like if you took money out of it and everybody had a little money tree that they could pull from, everybody would be doing what they wanted to be doing for the most part, other than the fact that of letting, I would say finances are a big fear of people's, and like not believing in themselves is the second. Like, is it like those are your top two right there,
sure,
hanging out in the realm of things, right? Or they're the ones we hear probably the most of like why I'm not doing what I want to be doing. But I was going to say, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You're good.
Sometimes it's not easy. And I'm not like, this whole episode is not to say like, go quit your job and like conquer the world or whatever. It's like, hey, like just reevaluate. Like, why are you not happy where you're at? Or like, are you really happy? Like, I remember I thought I was fucking on cloud 9 and you were like, is this it? And I was like, what do you mean is this it? Like, this is great. We've worked so hard to be here. And you were like, truly, like, do you see yourself selling real estate forever? And I was like, yeah, I do. Like, yeah, actually I do. And you were like, really though? Like, do you? And I was like, I'm actually not sure because I've never thought about anything else. And you were like, that's a problem. And you were like, think about it. Like, take it away. What would you do? And I was like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I was truthfully like, oh, I don't know. Like, if that got taken away, I don't know. Like, that was my course of life. I don't know. That was what I was told. That was what I was shown. That's what I was good at. So like, why would I veer from that?
Right.
Is that really what I like? My heart is desiring, not 100%. Like, it's great and I like it and I'm good at it. But like, is that what I wanted to be doing? I don't know. Right. Obviously not. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes it's just asking yourself those questions of like, hey, is this it? Like, and it's not in a bad way. It's just kind of like in your perfect world, what would it look like? When you opened your eyes in the morning, what does that perfect day look like? And why are you not doing it? Or what's causing you not to be able to do it? And how can you get around those things?
Well, it goes back to what everybody tells their kids all the time, right?
Which is?
You can be anything you want to be and you can do anything you want to do, but yet we're still stuck in the job because we feel like we have to make, let's say $5,000 to $10,000 a month to buy the new car and to have the house so our kids can go to school and then play the games and do the activities. But we come home and we're super miserable.
Yeah.
And then we get the promotion and we buy the newer car and add to our expenses and put ourselves more in debt. And we're just playing that game over and over again.
Yeah.
And like, we're keeping up with the Joneses and we're making sure that everybody else thinks that we're okay and that we're good. But really inside, like, we're not.
Yeah.
And we're just not. And we're sitting there telling sitting there telling little Johnny that, hey, you can grow up and you can be whatever you want to be, right? But your dad isn't doing anything. And your dad's just literally coasting through life. And your mom is just trying to like keep her head above water, cleaning everything up and working the job and doing whatever she does, right? And I don't think little Johnny's going to trust you when he turns 18, right? And that was really hard. I think that's really hard for everybody to stare that in the face and be like, am I actually doing what I want to be doing? And am I lying to my kids? Am I lying to everybody else? And more importantly, am I lying to myself?
Yeah.
And when you come to that realization, you actually will start to ask yourself what you really want and what you really could be doing. Mm-hmm. It's really, really cool because as we see ourselves for who we are, we come out with actually the truth of what we could do.
Yeah.
Again, it's not easy. And it was a really, really hard realization for us. But as we looked in the mirror, we just couldn't live with the people that we were anymore. And so, right?
Yeah.
We knew that we had the podcast. We knew that this is fun. And guys, we've never made a dime doing this podcast.
Yeah, we don't make anything. We just love it. It's
never
fun.
made one dime doing the podcast, but we find so much fulfillment and purpose in doing it. And maybe one day we'll get some supporters out there.
I don't know.
And maybe one day we'll get some sponsors and stuff like that. And you guys will have to listen to ads. Right now is not that time.
Yeah.
And that's okay for us. But we find so much purpose in sharing our story so other people can actually like help, so we can help other people grow into what they want to be.
Yeah.
Right. Because as we share our stories, we bring other people with us. And so that's what we're doing with the podcast. And if you know our story, and we would kind of urge you to listen to the past episodes mm-hmm. of like what our story actually is. We ended up going to somebody and investing in ourselves. And that was another thing too. Everybody was like, yeah, the best investment you can make is in yourself. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, what does that mean?
I'm like, I'm going to go get eyelashes. I'm going to go get my nails done,
I mean,
my
that's
hair
part of it.
done, my gym. Yeah,
that's part of it.
Part of it.
But for me, in that stage of life, I was like, well, that means I'm going to go buy the gun or the car or the new shoes or whatever it is. Like, that's what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's investing in me. I feel good about it. Right. But really investing in you is like your knowledge, your sense of being, right?
Yeah.
Who you are, your brain, figuring out your mental state. That's investing in you.
Yeah.
Right. Like you see these people going to these conferences all the time or going to like breathwork sessions or buying the gym membership, right? Those are investing in yourself.
Yeah.
It really is.
And I think they have the highest return, in my opinion.
And the reason is because I truly believe, let's talk about highest return, right? I truly believe that if we don't, when I was not investing in myself and when I couldn't see myself for who I was, I got fat, I got miserable, I got anxious, depressed, and suicidal, mm-hmm. right? And it's because I was putting my money into other things. I was putting my money into like the food. I was putting my money into the car, the house, whatever it was. I was giving, and nothing was coming back to me, right? I wasn't investing in my body, in anything like that, nothing, right? And I didn't realize that was what that meant, right? And so I got so unhappy so fast. And like I just played that game of what I just barely described of like making more money and buying the new thing.
Yeah.
Right? Until we came down to the fact where it was just like, do these things actually help us? Or are they actually hindering us from living a better life? And we came down to the fact that they're hindering us from living a better life. And so like, let's get rid of them. Let's get rid of the accounts. Let's get rid of the cars. Let's get rid of the subscriptions and all the things. Right.
Yeah.
And that's just what it came down to. It's just a really cool realization to look back in your life and be like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm doing what I want to now. But so we did the podcast route, right?
We're doing the podcast route. We're not stopping.
Doing the podcast route. We hit a point where we hired a coach, right? Mm-hmm. We actually invested in ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that was the hardest money I've ever spent. Hardest money I've ever spent.
Yeah, it was hard.
And it wasn't like it was a small amount of money either.
No, we did it after we quit. Mm-hmm. That was fun. We like made that decision. We were like going. Yeah.
We were going for a little bit. It was on and off. And then we're just like, we have to go all in. If we want to do this and we want to better ourselves, we're going to do it.
And we did.
And that was the hardest money we ever spent.
But the best. I don't regret a dime.
I know. And it's cool because every single day, like we go twice a week to the coach that we go to. And literally it's like guys, it's night and day. We could have a horrible day and then we could just figure it out the next day.
Yeah.
right?
I think the thing with coaching though, a lot, because I was like such a hater on it at first. I was like, I don't understand this. This is stupid. I can figure it out. I don't need it. I don't need therapy. Fuck that. Whatever. I really was like that.
No, I felt the same way. I did not want to go.
No, it just seems stupid. I was like, I don't understand this. And like, I'm saying that because I know that a lot of people have those same thoughts.
Right.
But for me, it's been so nice because like you can go to the event, you can go to the breathwork classes, you can go to the retreats, you can go do the rituals, like whatever it is. And I think all those are amazing. And I think they're
Well, we've been to them and they're amazing.
Yeah. And like, well, I love them, but you leave and you're like on a high and you're like, yes, I'm going to change the world. And then something happens in your personal life and you're like, fuck. And you're back to square. Yeah. Yep. And you're like, crap. So I think what coaching's done for us is given us those tools to continually work on ourselves. Like it's like continual high of the retreats. It's the continual growth. It's the continual work. And I've loved that about coaching, that I didn't realize that that's really what I was wanting. It's not necessarily, it's getting past the stories that we continually tell ourselves on a day-to-day basis of like, this is why I am the way that I am. And like, those stories are okay, but they're used to protect us. And so kind of to get through those and to work through and to grow and to develop. And like, it's the best thing I've ever done, not only for myself, but like for our marriage, for our kids. Like I truly could not say, like, if you were ever to take, like, what are some things in your life that you are so grateful you've done? Like, it would probably be in my top 5, if not my top 3 things I've done. Yeah. So I don't know. That's been fun.
Yeah. So we went to that, and that was the first investment that we made in ourselves. And it was interesting because we sat across from a person that actually saw us for what we could be.
Yeah.
Rather than everybody else that I was asking for opinions, right? Like before, of what they think I should be, right?
Or what they wish they were, exactly. Or whatever. Yeah.
And that goes like to projections and stuff like that. But yeah, I just had, and like we had to start asking ourselves what we actually wanted to do. And it was cool as we went through this and as we worked through all of our relationship problems, our marital problems and things like that, this person sitting across from us was like, hey, you guys can do this. Mm-hmm. And we believed. And we actually implemented for ourselves and started practicing the things that we were being taught. And we're like, okay, cool. And like, you guys have seen it. You guys have seen how our relationship has grown if you've listened to us for a long time. And we were like, okay, cool. Yeah, I think we can. And we had started the podcast at that point, and we had helped some people work through some things. We weren't experts by any means. But we were willing, right? And we were just doing it just for fun. And we're like, okay, cool. Well, we don't feel called to what we're doing anymore. So that's when everything came out, where it was just like, let's quit. So that's where we were at. And that's what it came down to. And now we're on a journey of, we genuinely feel so called to help other people get to the same spot that we're at, or wherever spot you need to get in your relationship and in your life. Right.
Yep.
And granted, guys, there's a lot of people that do coaching. There's a lot of therapists out there. Right. The coolest part about us is that we see each other for who we are. Yeah. And we get to do this together. And I'm just going to put this small plug. There's not many people that can do what we do together. Yeah. And we bring so much to the table when it comes to that. And like, there's really nothing that we haven't been through that we couldn't help somebody else out with. Mm-hmm. Right. And genuinely, like, we got down to the point where we stopped being afraid of asking for what we wanted to. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're at now. Yeah. And so genuinely what we want is, like, we want to help you. We want to help your relationship. We want to help your mental state. We want to make sure that you want to be here. Don't leave. Right. And if that's something that you want for yourself, then we would love to talk to you. So I guess this episode really is about, like, we quit our jobs without knowing where we were going to go. And we kind of knew where we were going to go, the direction we wanted to take. But we did it without a perfect blueprint plan. We had zero roadmap of how to get there. Mm-hmm. Right. And we just trusted ourselves enough to get to the point where we're at right now. Yep. Right. And it is so crazy that, and I wish that, one day I hope I can make a movie of what our life, or write a book or something like that, of what our life has turned out to be, even at the stage of being 31 years old. Right. But it's been so crazy that as we literally just put ourselves out there and be our true selves and don't hold anything back, how our lives have changed for the better, right? And it's really, really hard for other people on the outside to see that because not many people can do that. And I feel so grateful every single day that I've felt the calling that we've felt, right, to do this, because I've said it over and over again. I don't think a lot of people get to feel that feeling in their lifetime.
Yeah.
But genuinely, my purpose is to help other people feel that.
Yep.
And to understand where they need to go with their lives and to understand how they can change their mindset to actually live a positive, free thinking, happy life. Like it's crazy how many people are walking around not happy. And it makes me really, really sad.
No,
right?
100%.
Anyway.
So yeah, that's our story of all the fun stuff. So the short of it, we are now certified coaches, and we would love to talk to you. Right now we're doing free discovery sessions for the month of September. The link is in our Instagram bio. We'll put it also in the podcast show notes as well. That's kind of our calendar of when we can meet. We can meet in person here in Utah if you're here in Utah locally. Or we are doing like Skype or Zoom sessions. Like Skype isn't even a thing anymore. Sorry.
No, like
Zoom,
FaceTime, Google Meets, or
FaceTime.
Zoom. Yeah.
Just like over the phone, face to face, like things over the phone that way. So that's kind of our calendar, I guess I would say. But we do have some flexibility. If those times don't work for you, reach out. We'd still love to talk to you. But we are doing coaching. We have like pricing, all that fun stuff there. And then on top of that as well, we are going to be offering some other fun stuff as months go on, maybe on like a smaller scale. If you're not like, hey, coaching's for me, I need this.
Yeah.
We'll offer a subscription based off of like Grind Together community kind of a thing. So you can be part of a community of couples. We say relationships, but in our minds, relationships are everything. It's a relationship to you, a relationship to your spouse, life, business, your kids, everything. So relationships are over like all encompassing. It's not just a relationship, like an intimate relationship. So think about it that way. So we are relationship coaches in that sense.
Yeah.
We are very passionate, obviously, about intimate relationships as far as like spouses and partnerships go that way. But we would love to talk to any and everybody for the discovery sessions for the month of September. And we just, like Matt said, we just love to help you. We truly believe that we can help guide you into having like the most incredible life you could ever imagine, and helping you realize that, and giving you the tools and the resources and to help you get on that journey there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the short of it.
It comes with the perspective of the male and the female. And I think that's the coolest part, where like the calls that we've had so far and the meetings that we've had so far, because I mean, they've kind of piled up, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Which is super, super cool. They can be the most simple things, but they can also be the most complex things too. Like, call me about a porn problem, call me about like whatever it is, about a relationship problem, or if you feel stuck in your job or don't know what to do next. Like how to take the next step, whatever it is. Like, we've had so many conversations with so many cool people. And really everything happens really organically of, okay, cool. How do we just implement a different style of thinking and a different lifestyle too?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But, I guess my point in saying that is just like, don't be afraid to schedule with us.
Yeah. We want to talk to you.
Right.
We want to talk. That's why we chose to do this. Is like these conversations are what we want to do when we want to have them. And they literally make our life so much better. The calls that we have had and the meetings we have had here at our home, it's like, oh my gosh, people, even you and I just sit here in awe of like, this is really what we want to be doing. This is so incredible. This is so amazing. Yeah. We learn so much from you as well. And we love you. And we like, truthfully, like, I say out there, like, we couldn't do it without you, but like, we need you, and we want to talk to you. We want to be involved in your life, and we want to be those people that you can come to and confide in and talk to, and let us be your biggest cheerleaders, and let us also call you out on your shit.
Right.
Like, let us do that for you. We want to. It's so fun to have somebody like that in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, and then on top of that too, because there's a lot of people like, okay, cool, what are you going to do? How are you going to make money? All that kind of crap, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's an endless amount of ways to make money. And I think that that's the last thing that I want to end with, right? Because we could do the coaching, we could do the events, we could do the speaking engagements, all that kind of stuff, right? But for anybody out there listening, genuinely, if you're wanting to quit your job or you want to change your lifestyle a little bit, right? Look into different things of how to make money. Like my feed on Instagram for so long was like, I made $10,000 this month on Amazon selling FBA or whatever it is, right? And I know that people have thought that. So there's different ways to do it. And like even Gary Vee, which is super famous guy, he's just like, if you're making less than $100,000 a year, I would advise you to quit your job and go sell things on eBay, go garage selling, right? Like there's so many different ways if you're not happy with your life that you can change it. And I truly believe that. And I think that that is something to look at within yourself of, is this what I want to be doing? And if it's not, then you have the power to change it. And we would love to help you and walk you through that conversation.
Yep.
All right, guys. Okay, reach out to us. We'll put all the links below and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Love you guys.